Russia is running out of weapons. And after 43 months of war, Russia has burned through over 22,000 military vehicles, lost 4,100 tanks, and suffered more than 1 million casualties. The world's top military research institutes all say the same thing. Russia can't keep fighting like this past early 2026. Here's the math that proves Russia's war machine is collapsing. Let's start with hard facts. Oryx is a website that tracks destroyed military equipment in Ukraine. They're extremely careful. They only count losses they can prove with photos, videos, or verified evidence. According to Oryx, Russia has lost 22,486 pieces of military equipment since February 2022. That includes 4,090 tanks destroyed, damaged, abandoned, or captured. When the war started in February 2022, Russia had about 2,800 working tanks ready to fight. They also had somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000 old Soviet tanks sitting in storage yards across Russia. But here's the problem. Most of those storage tanks had been sitting outside for 30 or 40 years. Rusty, broken. Many are completely unusable. At the start of the war, Russia pulled tanks from storage and fixed them up. In 2022, Russian repair facilities were fixing 120 tanks every month. But by early 2025, that number crashed to just 30 to 35 tanks per month. Why the massive drop? It's simple. Russia grabbed the best tanks from storage first. Those tanks needed minor repairs, new paint, some new parts, relatively easy work. But now those good tanks are gone. Russia also builds brand new tanks from scratch. Their factories produce about 250 new contemporary tanks every year. These are upgraded T-72s, T-82s, and T-90Ms. Good modern tanks. Let's add it up. Russia fixes 30 to 35 old tanks per month. That's about 400 tanks per year from repairs. Add 250 new tanks. Russia can field roughly 650 tanks per year. But the devastating part, Russia lost 1,400 tanks in 2024 alone. They're losing tanks more than twice as fast as they can replace them. The International Institute for Strategic Studies is one of the most respected military research organizations in the world. In February 2025, they looked at these exact numbers and said Russia would run out of tanks by early 2026. In May 2022, just 3 months after the invasion started, Russia began deploying T-62 tanks. These tanks were built in the 1960s and were already outdated in the 1980s. Now, Russia is using them in 2025 because they have nothing else. Russia also tried to deploy their miracle weapon, the T-14 Armata tank. Russia spent 10 years developing this tank. From 2015 to 2020, they promised to build 2,300 of them. They said it would be the best tank in the world, better than anything America or Europe had. In April 2023, Russia finally sent some T-14s to Ukraine. Estimates range from 20 to 40 tanks. Russia announced they were using them in combat. But here's what happened next. By September 2023, just 4 or 5 months later, Russia pulled out every single T-14 Armata. All of them. Gone. Russia said the tanks needed improvements based on combat results. That's diplomatic language for they didn't work right. But the embarrassment runs deeper. When Ukrainian forces destroyed several Russian T-90M tanks, Russia's most advanced model in active service, they discovered a disturbing truth. Some of the reactive armor blocks, designed to explode outward and stop incoming missiles, were found to be empty or poorly filled, raising suspicions of corruption and negligence in the supply chain. It's not the first time Russian military gear has been compromised by missing components. Analysts say this could explain why supposedly elite tanks have been failing so easily on the battlefield. And even beyond that, Russian tanks suffer from a fatal design flaw. Their autoloader system stores ammunition right under the turret. When the armor is pierced, the shells detonate, blowing the turret sky high, a deadly effect Ukrainian troops now call the Jack in the Box. The problem? The ammunition sits under thin armor on top of the tank. In normal ground combat, this isn't terrible. Enemy tanks usually shoot from the front or sides where Russian armor is thickest. But Ukraine doesn't fight tank versus tank battles anymore. Ukraine uses drones. Small quadcopter drones that cost $500 to $2,000. These drones fly above the battlefield and drop bombs onto the top of tanks. right onto that thin armor covering the ammunition. One cheap drone can destroy a $2 million tank, and it happens every single day. Here's the terrifying math for Russia. When they had thousands of tanks, Ukrainian drone operators had to be careful. Russian tanks protected each other. Air defense systems covered them. But now, with far fewer tanks, Ukraine's drones operate more freely. They hunt tanks more aggressively. Russian tank losses accelerate. In the first half of 2024, Russia lost about 1,000 armored vehicles every month. Bad, but manageable. By the end of 2024, that number exploded to 3,000 vehicles per month. That includes all vehicle types, not just tanks, but it shows how fast Russia is bleeding equipment. If losing tanks was a humiliation, what came next was pure desperation. In April 2025, a Reuters investigation peeled back the curtain on one of Russia's biggest military secrets. Satellite photos, shipping data, and leaked Russian memos revealed something staggering. North Korea had quietly shipped between 4 and 6 million artillery shells to Russia in just 18 months. That number isn't just large, it's alarming. It exposed the truth. Russia's war machine is running on borrowed firepower. On paper, Russian factories can produce about 2.3 million shells a year. The Kremlin promised to raise that to 3 million, but never did. Meanwhile, Russian gunners fire roughly 10,000 shells every single day, nearly 3.6 million rounds a year. Without foreign help, Russia's guns would fall silent in less than 12 months. Reuters' findings went deeper. Internal Russian documents showed that some artillery brigades were firing 100% North Korean shells, others up to 75%. The world's second strongest army was now completely dependent on one of the poorest, most isolated nations on Earth. And it gets worse. Ukrainian intelligence revealed that half of those shells don't even work. Many were made in the 1970s and 1980s, corroded, unstable, and deadly to their own users. Some never explode. Others detonate inside the gun, killing the Russian crew on the spot. 6 million shells, but only 3 million usable. At current fire rates, that's barely a year's supply. Now, even North Korea is running dry. Its warehouses are empty. And Russia? It's racing to build a new explosives plant deep in Siberia, far from Ukrainian drones and far from the front. But time is running out. The world's largest artillery force is bleeding ammunition and options. Russia's air force isn't just struggling, it's falling apart. And the most shocking part? Ukraine doesn't even need to shoot most planes down. Russia is doing the job itself. When Western sanctions hit in 2022, Moscow made a bold promise. Build 1,000 new passenger planes by 2030 to replace every Boeing and Airbus it could no longer maintain or buy. It sounded patriotic, ambitious. But 3 years later, that dream is grounded. Russia has built almost nothing. A handful of Sukhoi superjets were assembled using pre-sanctioned parts. That's it. The first all-Russian MC-21 jet with domestic engines finally made a test flight in April 2025 after years of delays. Mass production? Maybe 2026. Maybe never. Moscow's aviation timeline is a graveyard of broken promises. But the real disaster is on the military side. According to the RAND Corporation, one of America's top defense think tanks, Russia's Air Force now operates at less than 75% of its pre-war strength. Yes, Ukraine has downed planes. The real killer is overuse. Before the war, Russian pilots flew about 60 sorties per day. Once the invasion began, that number exploded to 150 to 300 missions daily. The result is that Russia's planes are aging 5 times faster than they were ever designed to. Engines are burning out, airframes cracking, critical systems failing mid-air. RAND estimated that Russia destroyed the equivalent of 60 aircraft just through wear and tear in the war's first 8 months, while Russian factories can only build around 20 new ones. It's a death spiral. Fewer planes mean each must fly more, which burns them out even faster. Meanwhile, Ukraine has obliterated more than 340 Russian surface-to-air systems, including over 30 of the prized S-300 and S-400S, each worth tens of millions. In a desperate move, Russia has begun using its S-300 air defense missiles to strike ground targets. a weapon never meant for that role, like using a fishing rod to hammer nails. The irony runs deeper. In October 2024, Israel destroyed 4 Russian-made S-300s in one night, proving just how vulnerable these advanced systems truly are. And we all know that equipment can be replaced eventually, but humans can't. On July 17, 2025, UK Defense Secretary John Healey stood in Parliament and delivered a stunning announcement. Russia has suffered over 1 million total casualties in Ukraine. That's killed and wounded combined. About 250,000 Russians are confirmed dead. In just the first 7 months of 2025, Russia lost another 240,000 casualties. That's over 1,100 Russian soldiers killed or wounded every single day. Independent journalists have tried to count the bodies one by one. The Russian outlet Media Zona, working with BBC Russian service, verifies each death using obituaries, cemetery records, social media posts, and local documents. They have confirmed 134,125 deaths by name, each tied to a real person, a real family, a real grave. But statistical modeling suggests the true number is far higher, somewhere between 165,000 and 219,000 dead, while Western intelligence now puts the figure near 250,000. The human toll is destroying more than families. It's gutting Russia's economy. The defense industry alone needs 160,000 additional workers right now, according to Russia's own deputy prime minister. Since 2023, they've already added 500,000 new workers and still can't fill the gaps. One report shows defense factories with 60,000 open positions for lathe operators, skilled machinists essential for weapons production, yet only 2,000 people applied. Where did the workers go? 250,000 are dead, 750,000 are wounded. Many of the survivors can't work. To keep its army alive, Russia needs 30,000 new soldiers every month, while nearly 1 million educated professionals have fled abroad. Officially, unemployment sits at 2.4%, but that's not strength. It's depletion. There's no one left to hire. The average defense worker is 45 years old, and barely 1 in 6 is under 29. As veterans die and aging workers retire, there's no next generation to replace them. The result is a vicious cycle. Fewer weapons, more deaths, and even fewer workers. The damage isn't temporary. It's demographic and it's permanent. The mathematics are simple and brutal. Russia loses 1,400 tanks annually, but produces only 650. Artillery survives on North Korean shells with a 50% failure rate. The Air Force wears out planes faster than factories build replacements. 1 million casualties created labor shortages that will last for decades. Every major military research organization agrees. The International Institute for Strategic Studies, RAND Corporation, the UK Ministry of Defense, all reach the same conclusion. Russia cannot sustain current operations past early 2026 without fundamental changes. Russia faces 2 choices: either completely change how they fight this war or watch the military collapse under its own weight. The blitzkrieg that failed in 3 days is now failing in slow motion. The question now is, can they get back up or come up with something better? Like and subscribe to know the next possible outcome. Before we move on, let me leave you with one thought. While Russia struggles to keep its forces alive, another superpower has been quietly flexing muscles that make the rest of the world take notice.